Welcome, everybody, to the October 8th, 2024 meeting of the Grafton School Committee. We are going to come to order, and I'm going to open the floor to public comment. Is there any public comment tonight? Seeing none, because I know everybody in the audience. We're going to move into general business. I'd like to alert the committee. We're going to take things just a little bit out of order tonight with your permission, that we're going to do food service presentation, then special education budget and presentation, and then the fiscal 26 budget. Is that okay with everybody?
That's fine.
Awesome. Great. All right, so we will have the food service presentation come on up first.
All right. It's our pleasure to introduce Joe Armenti. He's Whitson's district manager, and Betsy Labonte, our school nutrition director extraordinaire.
Yay.
They have both been consistently fantastic to work with for however many years it's been. So incredibly grateful to both of you, and thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you for having us. Well,
This one.
I think so. There we go. We just wanted to give you an overview, really, of the program and really open it up to questions or concerns that you may have. We could tell you about the meal counts year over year, last year versus the previous year. Also, the strategic plan of some of the ideas we have for this year. So if you first look at breakfast meals, 22, 23, did about 69,973 breakfast meals. Last year, 23, 24, we did 79,000, so there was an increase in breakfast. And we expect another increase because now we're doing north and south as well. This is the ADP, close to, on average, we were doing the high threes, touching 400 now. Last year, we were well into 450 per day. Same thing with lunch. 2022-23, we did over 279,000. Then 23-24, we did 282,000. So there was an increase in lunch meals as well. The ADP as well, we consistently were close to about 1,500 meals a day, 1,600 most, on most days as well. An overview of last year. We did training, simply safety, monthly safety topics. We have an online program, Alchemy, that does a lot of our training, so folks can go home and get online and do the training at their leisure. We did choke safety, allergen, civil rights training. Also, Task Force Green, we implemented composting in the kitchens. An overview continued. We did some exciting promotions, pop-ups we call them, Yardbird, which is the chicken sandwich, the Wing Shack, Nashville chicken, kicking chicken, that's the hot chicken, tot spots, loaded tater tots. We have a program, Meatless Mondays, which is veggie bowls. It's always a meatless entree on Mondays. We had a paid student internship last year as well at the high school. Betsy does the reading at the elementary schools every year. We also recognized all our team members for their dedication in the Lunch Hero Day. What we look for this year, some of the strategic plan, is we implemented breakfast at North and South, which seems to be going well. We're going to enhance sustainability. We're doing a Next Trex recycling program, which is all the plastic in the kitchens, the saran wrap. You can imagine how much of that is. And we recycle all of that in each kitchen. They come and they pick it up. We're also going to, Jay doesn't know it yet, but plan a lunch with leadership program where we have administration come and serve the kids lunch one day. We'll also do a student survey. We're also interviewing for a chef, to add a chef to the district, so we can do some more training, do more promotions, expand the menu offerings. Also, we'll continue to utilize the Northeast Food Grant, which we received from local foods from the Food Hub in Worcester, Red Tomato, Red's Best Fresh Seafood as well. And that's pretty much it.
Are there any questions from the committee?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, we were just speaking before, and since I didn't know, I think it might be good because probably other people don't know. Can you tell me about how you get free milk at school if you bring your own lunch?
Yes, so we have a program called Pick 3, and it allows kids who brought their home lunch to get nice ice-cold milk at school. If they select a fruit serving and a vegetable serving and a milk, that is considered a reimbursable meal. So we would be able to provide that to the students at no cost.
And if they just took a milk, basically, we would have to charge them a la carte. That's what the regulation is. So what we're really trying to do is save parents that cost and say, try the vegetables, try the other offerings, share them at the table, and then the parents don't get surprised with a charge for milk that they didn't realize they were gonna get.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
I have a question about breakfast, and I know, and part of this might just be that I don't know everything about what's going on, but I know at South Grafton, the kids have to like opt in. Is that how it is at all the schools? Do they have to
Not
like,
at
opt
all.
into breakfast? Okay.
North and South Grafton this is the first year we've done breakfast. So in order for us to try to get a handle on how many kids are gonna be participating, the principals did put out a survey and said, hey, if your kids would like breakfast, could you please fill out this form? Anyone can walk in at any time right off the school bus and get breakfast.
I mean, I was also thinking about the logistics of the numbers that you're talking about. It's like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, so you're making how many meals?
Right.
And so
Right.
I
Right.
really appreciate that, getting
Right.
those.
I can certainly talk to the principals and let them know maybe it's a good time to, just reiterate that we are doing breakfast there.
Yeah.
In case, do another round of, see if we can get some more.
Is it going well at the
It's
younger
a slow
grades?
start. I mean, it's new. It's a schedule change for that type of school, so it's going, mechanically well, but yeah, sure.
Wonderful.
I'll take care of that
I
tomorrow.
did 20 or 30 a day in
It's
each.
about 25 at South and it's 10 to 15 at North
Oh, okay.
at the moment, so,
Thank you.
oh, of course.
Other questions?
I actually do have a question because it says you utilize Red's Best Seafood. Do you guys serve seafood?
Not yet.
Okay. Will you be
Yeah,
serving?
we are looking into partnering with them. Whitson's has done it in other districts. So it would be mostly fresh fish that we'd be looking at.
How does it go over in other districts? The fresh.
Very well.
Very well. Yeah.
Very well, very well.
That's part of bringing a chef too, to help with that and to come up with different recipes, the fish that the kids are gonna like.
Right.
Right. Is it
No.
mostly like whitefish that the kids
It
eat?
is.
Yeah.
We
it's
have
not-
cod. I
not
was just looking over their catalog. We can get pretty much most any fish, so salmon.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
That's cool.
Very cool.
And that goes off to the grant. There's a Northeast grant that we received. So if you use local food, you're able to do it. That's Red Tomatoes, the same thing. They use local
Red tomatoes are
Produce.
produce distributor, yeah.
local produce farms in the area.
Right.
So that would get charged off to the grant, and so would the seafood from local fishermen.
Now, is that something you would serve to all the schools in the district, or is that more of a high school type?
We would probably start it at the high school and see how it went over. It certainly could be done at other schools.
I think in the elementaries, we're getting them on fish sticks
Fish
first.
stick.
Yeah. So,
Tuna patty.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for this great presentation. You know, you guys are such a wonderful extension of the Grafton Schools. You're such a partner. It's like you're, you know, a member. You are. You're part of the team. So I always love hearing from you. Would school committee members be welcome on the administration serving lunch?
course.
I would love to come in and
Of
serve some
course.
lunch.
Sure.
of course,
All right.
we're on the list.
Awesome. Thanks, Betsy.
Student reps, anything?
Yeah, a lot of my friends and I have noticed that the food has been really great this year. Yesterday, everyone was really excited about the mac and cheese.
Good.
There was like a huge line for it. So
Good.
yeah, just thank you guys for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great feedback. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much for your time. We always look forward to hearing from you, and we love it when you come in. Glad you were able to make it.
Thank you.
I'll be curious to hear about how the fish goes over.
Me too.
If you can get kids to eat fish, I think it's great.
Excellent.
Thank you
all.
again.
Thank you.
Good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Next up, we're going to have our special education update.
Thanks a lot, Joe. Thanks, Betsy.
Come on up, Nicole.
She's so cute.
I won't make that joke. No, I was gonna make a joke. I decided not to.
Jokes aren't funny.
All right, you gotta be heard.
All right. So hi, everyone. I'm back.
Well, thanks for coming out.
Yes, absolutely. So the first part of my presentation is going to be more of like the typical update that we've done in years past. And then luckily I have these two folks with me to kind of present the budget from there. So I'm going to jump in. So first I want to tell you all, I know we were talking a lot about the new IEP version. So that has rolled out this school year. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an update on that. Professional development opportunities that we have for our special education staff this year. Always going to have a nice little plug for our CPAC within my presentation. So I have that in here as well. And then, like I said, we'll jump into our budget presentation and open up for any questions. So as we have discussed in kind of past times that I've come to visit you all, we do have a new version of the IEP that was put out by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Really, as I discussed last time, the focus is meant to be on students having a voice within their education. Really trying to focus in on streamlining some of the supplementary information in the old version of the IEP. So for students that have a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, there was an additional form that needed to be filled out. The transition planning form, which talked for students over the age of 14, was an additional supplementary form. This new version really builds all of that into the IEP, so that's a great aspect of the version of this IEP. Increased readability, I will say, as we've jumped into this, I think we've discussed this before. Chris Kitchell and I read every single IEP that comes out of our office, and right now we have over 600 and something students with special education needs. I will tell you, as I'm reading this new IEP, I actually feel like I know the student much better than the old version of that IEP. That did take a lot of work with our team chairs, with our service providers on what should be in there, what parts of things we can kind of let go of a little bit, because always when we have change, letting go of some aspects of those things can be very challenging. But it's definitely more readable. I think students could pick it up, read it, feel like they understand what they're meant to be receiving as a special education student. I believe families, when students move to other districts, I feel like we really just have a great picture of the student in this new version. So I do find that it's definitely more focused on a whole student approach. I talked a little bit last time I was here about specific questions regarding students that have English learning needs. I talked a little bit, like I had just mentioned, students with autism spectrum disorder, disabilities. The questions are much more targeted throughout the IEP to give a better look of that student as a whole student. Students with hearing impairments, vision impairments, there's directed questions that really force the team to focus in on those things. Even our transition planning form components to the new IEP really do target the whole student, how their whole learning needs will affect their transition outside of our world. So our next steps, for those parents that do have students with special education needs, you get a lovely video of me that makes me cringe more than you can absolutely believe. With your meeting invitation. So that video really does break down a little bit more what the new IEP looks like. It goes into each page so that we're preparing families for their meetings coming up, continuing to provide technical support as we move into our special education progress reports. Guess what? The progress reports look a little different. So, as we kind of see all these nuances to it, we're able to work through that technical assistance with our staff on how to fill that out, how to make sure we have the best and most robust progress reporting is something that we're currently talking about. And then continuing to really explore best practice for student voice. I think that that piece, I do believe, makes me feel like I know the student better. The student's voice in there telling us what they want to do or what's hard for them or what they really like, I think gives us a lens to really build their entire education on. So I do feel like that piece is continuing to be discussed. How do we include some of our youngest learners? Some students, we're evaluating at 2.5. We had a young preschooler say he wanted to be a giraffe. Perfect, right? And everyone's like, we're gonna put giraffe. I'm like, well, let's flesh that out a little bit more. But this is his input of so he must have an interest in animals and looking at those strengths. So I think it is a learning curve, I think, for a lot of folks, but why not? Why not put that he wants to be a giraffe? I think that's awesome. So it just gives you a little bit of picture of who they are, which is a little different than the way we really did formalize that piece. So I'm actually really excited about continuing to grow in that area. And then continuing to support parents and guardians in their understanding of the IEP process, the evaluation process. I think this new version of the IEP gives us the opportunity to restructure our meetings a little bit in a way that is more, I think, collaborative, conversation, not really trying to get through a document, if that makes sense. I think some people who have sat in an IEP meeting probably know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that. But really helping parents and guardians in their understanding of the IEP so that is more of a collaborative conversation. And then continuing to explore systems to support team members. So, creating different templates or things like don't forgets as we go through the new version of the IEP. So that is our next steps on that front. And I just really, you know me, I love a good quote. I think I put one into every single one of the times that I present, but the best thing we could do to support students with disabilities is to hear what they have to say. And however they're able to say that is, I would add to that. So jumping into professional development. So what will the special education staff this year be really focused in on? I think that this is an important component that I've always had in my updates that I think are really driving what we're doing with kids along the way, right? So our special education teachers are focused in, we're doing some real work on co-teaching this year. What that looks like, moving beyond basic co-teaching skills and really expanding those skills a little bit further. Of course, we're doing some curriculum work. We do have a couple new curriculums in place for students throughout the district, so our special education staff need to be well-versed in that curriculum as well. And then we're really focusing and honing in on inclusive practices with a lot of our special education teachers, what that looks like for them. Speech and language pathologist, ASHA is there, one of their licensing bodies every year. They have professional development opportunities for our speech and language pathologists, so we do have them participate in those things. Something that they are focused in on as well is developing a resource library that we can use outside of speech and language to be able to help coach, train general education staff, paraprofessionals, other special education staff that are outside of their specialty. So some of that will include, luckily not my face, but some of our speech and language pathologists making video recordings about different interventions, different things that they're utilizing, as well as different even like make and take handout type things to help support our staff. The BCBAs are doing that work as well in the area of behavior and applied behavior analysis interventions. And they are also doing some continuing education through their licensing body, which is the BACB. And then our team chairpersons, I talked a lot about the new IEP. This is a big focus for them because that is what they do all day, every day, is write those IEPs and meet and welcome, families into the world of special education. So really being able to develop them in that and talk a little bit more about IEP best practices is our goal for team chairs. And then this is probably my favorite area of, as I'm sure you all know through my previous presentations, I get very excited for our paraprofessional professional development. So these are just a couple of topics that we're focused in on for this year. I think a lot of the work that some of our related service providers are doing is really going to help and support our paraprofessional skill set. Especially, even, Mandy and I have worked a lot on exploring that orientation piece when we have new paraprofessionals that are hired, whether that's mid-year or at the beginning of the year, really giving them the tools and the skills they need to be up and running with the students that they're directly working with. Our paraprofessionals, I think, are the people that become the experts on the students they're working with more than probably anybody else in our district, quite honestly. So I think that placing that value on their professional development benefits all students and it benefits us as a district. So these were a couple topics that we're focused in on for them. Then our CPAC, so I included our slides. We actually have our first meeting on Thursday. Shameless plug for CPAC if anyone wants to join. We're always looking for new members. I think that, it really is a community in which you can, if you do have a student with special education needs or disability related needs, there's just such a great pool of people out there that can, support and be there for you, answer questions. So I always try to plug our CPAC every chance I can get. Our favorite part. So budget.
Do we want to pause real quick and?
Okay, sure.
That way, if anybody has questions for Nicole, not that you shouldn't stay for the next portion, but I think it might help divide the discussion up. So any questions for Nicole? Leora.
All right. Sorry, I have a few.
Yeah. do.
All right, so what's the feedback been from parents on the new IEP and when is really IEP season? I feel like
Well, so, great
a
question.
lot of those happen
Yeah.
more in the spring, so how many people
Yeah.
have flipped over and where are we with that?
So we haven't had, I'm gonna say less than 10, like, full new IEPs that have gone out of our office. Right now, if we've had an IEP amendment or teams have had like progress meetings, That can still be on our old version of the IEP. So if there's something that, a slight change, it's not like an annual review or a reevaluation or an initial. So with that being so minimal, we don't have a ton of feedback yet. The feedback, I have received good feedback on families feeling prepared for their meeting. And I joke about my stupid video, but that was nice. I shouldn't have said stupid. But, I hate my voice and face
We
all
all
the time
do.
on the thing screen.
Not yours, our own.
Yeah.
You knew what I meant.
Wow.
So I have gotten good feedback about that piece.
Great.
That no family kind of came into a meeting like, oh, there's a new IEP. They felt prepared. They felt like they knew. We had in the spring we had parent informational sessions. I wouldn't say we had some turnout.
Yeah, but not huge.
So, not huge
Recall,
turnout. So that piece of sending it to a parent, like sending this video, as much as I hate it, to parents ahead of time, I feel like you're much more, and me as a parent as well, I'm much more likely to read an email saying I have a meeting coming up and watching that video than I probably was to come to the in-person meeting back in April, right? And then you forget, right? Like everything that we talked about.
Yeah.
So we did want to make sure that parents were prepared, and I did get feedback that yes, that is the case.
Awesome.
So that I think was really great.
Very, very cool.
I think Nicole's being a tiny bit modest in that with Chris, Kitchell went to a training, what was it, last week? And they came back, and obviously they weren't yelling this from the rooftops, but their impression was that we as a district, thanks to them and the hard work of the team chairs and many other people, we're way ahead
Awesome.
of most places in terms of ramping up with staff. That's a big issue with
Yeah.
staff overwhelm and this new IEP.
totally new
So
pro- yeah.
anyhow, I think they did a fantastic job.
That's great. I'm glad to hear it.
Can I let Rebecca do one and then you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
go back?
Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead.
It's sort of somewhat piggyback. So you only have had a few come out, so I don't know if you'll have an answer for this, but are teachers giving you good feedback? I know as a teacher, when I was teaching and I would receive IEPs, it was like, and I taught middle school, so I had a lot of kids,
Yeah.
and it was like, okay, I gotta filter through a bunch of
Yes.
stuff and figure out what I'm supposed to do. And when you said it helped you feel like you were getting to know the student, it just made my heart feel really happy. I want to help these kids. I don't want to be check boxing and
Yeah.
so have teachers had an opportunity
Yeah.
to give you feedback?
So we did whole staff meetings back in the spring and introduce the new version of the IEP to show teachers what it's going to look like. Some of the IEPs that we've had gone out haven't come back really signed yet in the first couple weeks of school. So we haven't redistributed a fully filled out one, read this through and see what you've got. The thing that I love about the new version is the accommodations and modifications are a one page, and they're broken up into classroom accommodations, non-curricular accommodations, so lunch, recess, extracurricular activities, and then the last section is community workplace for some of our older students. So I think that based on the way it's laid out, a general education teacher, even, I'm thinking some of our PE teachers or our art teachers, especially at the elementary school, that basically see every student in their classroom on an IEP in any given week, right? Will be able to really hone in on the areas that they need because it's broken down much more and clearer. So my hope is that it will be, but I will definitely let you all know if we get any additional feedback on that front.
Thank you.
I do have a question, but
You have a question?
I'm happy to wait till after Leora.
All right, go ahead, Leora.
Okay. So I had that sort of covered one of my questions. So my last question is the inclusive practices PD. Can you talk just a tiny bit more about what that looks like for a special education teacher? Because I sort of envision what that might be for a general education teacher, but what's the focus for a special education teacher in that training?
So inclusive practices, as we all know, can range anywhere from, the like after school, like band concert, right? To any given moment in the school day. That might be lunch, that might be recess, that might be our EL lesson in some of our elementary classrooms, that might be the civics class at the high school. So partly our work on co-teaching is in a sense for our special education teachers, that is an inclusive practice, right? So it is on our grid B, that middle service that is meant to be included in a general education environment where the special ed teachers are there. So that training specifically, my hope is that as we get more practice for SPED teachers and more skill set in that area, they'll be able to include a lot more in that instead of kind of working towards a pull-out model for some of those special education services. Beyond that, I am specifically doing a lot of work with our intensive needs special education teachers on inclusive practices, what that looks like, what are potential barriers to inclusion for students, and then how are we breaking down those barriers along the way. Because in my opinion, and I know all of yours, is that every student with a disability is a part of our community and a part of, every student is our student as an umbrella, right? So I think that's the piece that I'm trying to kind of work with the teams on. Like, what are the barriers to that piece? How do we view all students as our students? How are the inclusion of special education students on the forefront of everyone's mind as opposed to planning after the fact, after something's already been planned, if that makes sense? I think we do a great job in Grafton of including all students, but I do think sometimes along the way, something is planned, and then we think about how we're including certain students in that, and I want that to be a forefront discussion. So really more shifting mindset by exploring barriers and breaking down those barriers.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
So that was actually pretty much my question. But I wanted to add, because Leora said she kind of understood how it looked. So to kind of break down all those barriers, though, how do you work with the non-special ed teachers? So that, that's where, because you said exactly what, like, I was thinking, like, not that after the fact, or, so how do we start to make sure that, because I would think that the special ed teachers are thinking of it forefront, but how do you get the non-special ed teachers to think about it?
Great question. So I'm on a little bit of a crusade in my in that sense. So my approach right now is to really work with the individuals that know the student's disability needs the best, to be able to push through some of those barriers. And when someone says, oh, well, I don't think that's going to work because of X, Y, and Z, I want it to be, well, we can probably make that work and this is why. So shifting that mindset a little bit, but I need our special education staff to be completely kind of on board with pushing through a little bit more in that sense, and having the skills to be able to brainstorm with somebody that is not as familiar with certain types of disability or certain types of learners that might be harder to come up with the different strategies and techniques for a general education teacher that maybe that is not quite their skill set. So I need the special education staff to be skilled enough to work through some of those things and to educate and teach folks that maybe don't feel, whether it's a comfortability factor, a skill set factor. I think it's different for everybody. But pushing through some of that, I need our strongest advocates and strongest people with knowledge in the area of disability to be able to speak to that. I mean, I could go to every single meeting and but that would be a lot. So I'm hoping that they can almost be my voice and my crusade of like, okay, well, I don't want to hear like we can't do it. Let's talk about what we can do, and go through that way.
Thank you. Perfect answer.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Any Anything else? Nobody else? Okay. Thank you, Nicole.
Perfect.
Go on to budget now.
A plus. So special education budget, and Kathleen and I and Nicole are going to talk about that. We're going to talk about really three buckets, if you will, make up our special education budget. We've got our own lines, which I'll talk about momentarily. We have circuit breaker funding, and we have grant funding. So in terms of our 11 central lines that we have, we are anticipating, and I should state, I'm going to say this probably every meeting, it's October 8th today. Like, we are so early, almost a year ahead. And as you well know, it's just the way it works in the spring. That's where we have a lot of changes, especially in special education. So this is our best thinking right now, like snapshot in time. The biggest increases, there are 3: collaborative tuition, out of district tuition. It's super early to be estimating or guessing. We built in 5%. We're fairly comfortable with that, but that's going to change as the year goes on. The big increase is $152,000 for therapeutic services. That's OT, PT, individualized nursing services. Those costs every year go up. We've found that with every year, the need for those services increases, but the significant driver in that 152 for us is actually probably, well, without a doubt, it's going to be a net gain for us in that we've just brought back 2 students who were in residential placement, but they don't come back to us and suddenly not need services. So they need nursing services and therapeutic services. It's great, not only financially, but most importantly, those students, instead of being bused somewhere every day to and from, are here in their hometown, their neighborhood school, so it's fantastic. So 2 that we already have with us and 2 anticipated. So that's 4 individualized CNA salaries built into that. So those are the big drivers in terms of the 11 lines in our budget.
I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about circuit breaker, what it is, how it works, and how it's used in the budget process. The State Special Education Reimbursement Program, commonly known as the Circuit Breaker Program, was started in 2004 to provide additional state funding to districts to help offset the cost for special education services. The reimbursement formula provides for a 75% reimbursement of the special education costs in excess of 4 times the state average per pupil foundation budget. So I have an example up here. Just, it should be noted, we don't get the full 100%, it's 75%. And there's a threshold. So if the threshold is $50,000 and a student's educational cost is $200,000, the school district may be reimbursed for 75% of the $150,000 excess. I just kind of wanted to explain that for people that have never heard of circuit breaker before. Here's some bullets about circuit breaker. As I mentioned, tuition reimbursement rates are 75%. You also can put in your claim for transportation, and that would be up to 44%. The thresholds this for fiscal year 25 is $52,419.
To add, transportation reimbursement right now is only for students that are out of district, so no in-district students for transportation.
And just understanding how the reimbursement schedule works. So Nicole's department will put in the claim for fiscal year 24, and the money will come in fiscal year 25, which is what we're in now. And they come in quarterly. I have here building reserves because it would be best practice to have 1 year's worth of reimbursement available. The next slide is going to show you kind of where we are and where we as a district would like to get back to. So fiscal year 24, we ended at $596,000. Our claim came in at 1.8 million roughly for the fiscal year 23 claims. And then we use some of circuit breaker, as you can see, to offset the tuition budget of 1.9 million. So we're starting this year at 512,000. And we are expecting the claim the claim that was for fiscal year 24 to be $1.7 million. So we're estimating to use 1.8 million to help offset some of those costs for fiscal year 25.
So if you missed it, we'd ideally, and in the past, we've had 1 year's worth, about 1.8 million essentially in reserve. And right now, because we spent out so much of that last year, we're down to around 500,000. You don't want to stay there.
But we were only at 6 before, right? It's not like we were ideal before that.
No, but we had the other backstop of at least we had school choice built up. We had those revolvers. Now we just don't.
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
can I ask a question before we go on? Yeah, okay. So I have a question on the circuit breaker. Who funds the 25%? So if it's, let's say your example, 200,000, we get 150 back, 50,000. If it's an out-of-district student, does Grafton fund it, or does the district from which the student is coming from fund it? Do you know what I'm saying? Like if we get a student from Shrewsbury, that's a high
School
need.
choice?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's 100% covered. Anything above and beyond is covered by the sending town.
By the sending town.
Yep.
Okay.
That would go if somebody has a para, if they go out of district, they wouldn't. It would basically make the school choice part null and void.
Okay.
But anybody that gets additional services, a kid comes in, they need OT, PT, they come in without needing services, but 3 years in, they do. That's all covered by the sending district.
Thank you.
since we're stopped, does anybody else have a question? Go ahead, Leora.
So the best practice of having a year's worth, I assume that's in case of a student moves into the district, or some kind of skyrocketing transportation cost, or
Yeah, it doesn't take much. If you look back.
low things, right?
Actually, we haven't got that far.
Okay.
But we're gonna get to it in a moment.
Okay.
The costs associated with some of the tuition, well,
Yeah,
most
yeah.
of the tuitions and the transportation.
Nice.
It's shocking how you think 1.8 million, you're just set. You're
not.
really, you're better off with 1.8 than 500,000, but 500,000 can be two students
Right.
who literally don't, no fault of theirs, I want to be crystal clear about that, but they may very well never step foot in our schools. We just absorb the cost of residential. That 500,000 would be not even two students
Yeah.
residential.
And we've seen tuitions and transportation costs specifically for out-of-district stuff go up pretty rapidly, right? Like way more than 5% in many cases.
Yeah, we're hoping it's less than 5 in this coming year.
Yeah.
Was it 2 years ago? It was 14,
Something, yeah.
14.8.
Yeah.
Out of COVID, they went up
Okay.
14, I think.
I did remember that. That's why I was like, ooh, 5?
Yeah.
Are we sure? But okay,
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay, thank you.
I have one more
Rebecca has a
question.
question.
Can you go back to the last, I think it's, no, 2 slides ago? No, farther. Sorry. The one, it was like that chart,
Oh,
that
yeah.
chart. Yep. So we're anticipating getting some students back, which is great, and that's gonna cost us money, but I assume that means we would be paying less for where they
Correct.
were. Okay, and we don't have that savings on this chart
Correct.
necessarily. Okay, just making sure. That's fine.
But keep in mind too, we get that savings back for out of district, but our circuit breaker,
Then goes
Then
we
to-
no longer
Right.
bill for that
Right,
student, right?
100%.
Everybody good? All right, thank you, Jay.
So our IDEA grant, this I just outlined, we have the 240 and the 262. The 262 grant is specific to early childhood, so students age 3 to 5. So this total that I have here is our FY25 total. That is determined by the Department of Education. We don't, it's not a competitive grant. We're not like applying for a certain amount of money. They tell us what we've got, and then we work with that on allocations. So right now, this is all that we've allocated. 87% of the total funding that we get from IDA is salaries and transportation. The rest of it is a little bit more nominal when you look at the larger picture. But salaries and transportation are our two kind of biggest spenders of our IDA grant allocation.
Can I just ask one quick question? Could you just talk a little bit about what are the factors that the state is looking at when they decide how much money for these two grants? What are they looking at?
So typically, special education numbers, so how many students are, special education students are, you will see proportionate share, which is a very confusing, messy concept. In the long run, our special education numbers and for proportionate share, any private schools we have within district, which for us is only one private school. So that's how they determine how much proportionate share money we get, how many schools you have, and then how many special education students you have. So mainly driven by our special education numbers that we report out to the state on.
And it's based on last year's numbers, correct?
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, Madam
Okay.
Chair, is the IDEA grant a state grant or a federal grant?
Federal.
It is federal, that's what I thought, okay.
It makes up about 83% of our total allocation for grants.
Yep.
We bring in about $1 million, but the lion's share is right there.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
So our special education costs, our out-of-district students, currently we have 35 students that are out of district, which I will say is pretty low in comparison to a lot of school districts. Remember, the regulation really states if you, it's either create it or find it. If a student has certain needs, you can't say we can't provide those needs. You have to either create it or find it. So a lot of our programming that we talked about that does obviously have a little bit more cost. Some of our intensive needs programming that has, you know, all those therapeutic services we talked about, some of the nursing services. A lot of that does keep a lot of our students in district that in many districts would not be in-district students, they might be out-of-district students. So our collaborative tuition costs per student right now are ranging between about the $50,000 to that $75,000 for collaboratives. So those are considered public day schools. Our private tuition costs per student are anywhere between that $65,000 to the $390,000. Your $390,000 is going to be that residential type programming, so that's students that require 24/7, 365-day special education services. So that is solely tuition. So it's really that range. For transportation, out-of-district cost per student for transportation is a pretty big range. If you look at that, $12,600 to $133,000 or so. That transportation cost can vary on a number of, you can imagine, a number of different reasons. Distance that transportation might be traveling, student needing monitors or additional support on transportation, as well as, you know, even just if there's ride shares, right? So some of that, sometimes we're lucky enough that somebody from the town next door is also going to the same school and we can kind of ride share. So that cost can vary. Anytime we can ride share, we do that. Again, sometimes that will mean maybe there's an additional monitor because we have, you know, some students with some more significant needs together on a van. So that cost can really vary. The in-district costs for transportation, so we do, just a reminder, preschool transportation. We provide transportation to all of our special education students that require preschool programming. So I did include that in here because that is a cost related to the special education services for students. And then we also have students that require specialized transportation. So students that can't ride big yellow school bus, that maybe are on kind of a van or have some sort of specialized need, whether that's maybe a wheelchair need or something along those lines. That is, our cost there for this coming year is the $267,000 just for the specialized transportation in town. With regard to staffing, we're not proposing any increases in staffing for FY '25. So that's where we are for costs. So the GAIN program, obviously we had moved the GAIN program out of Grafton High School about a year and a half or so ago. It was February, I just fondly remember February, when we moved into our space. We did discuss at that time that any rental fees for that space would be covered by us tuitioning in a student from another district, and we were able to do that thus far. So our rental costs have been covered by that tuitioned in student.
Great. Any other questions from the committee? This was fantastic, by the way. Well, everybody thinks this is really helpful. I think it's great for everybody, us and the public, to see exactly in the special education budget, where's the money going? Because I think as we move through this process, transparency is so important. I really appreciate all the hard work that you all did. I know it's tough to break these things out and make it consumable for people who don't live in this world, either the special education world or the finance world. So I appreciate it. It's very clear. I understand what you're talking about. I did have one question about the preschool transportation. That there's no number for that. Is that just hard to break out because it's part of the regular runs, right? Okay. So it's included in the regular transportation budget, but okay. All right, cool. Thank you. Anybody? Becca?
A question which I don't know if you can answer about preschool. And so if we were running preschool just for the special ed kids, not offering it for anyone else, not doing the lottery, nothing, would that be operating at a loss?
So we can't
That's
do that.
I'm like, the money you have
Actually
is like
illegal.
not really enough.
Yes.
That's okay.
So, our tuition for preschool, I would not say is like a skyrocketed cost, especially
not.
in relation to a lot of private preschools. In that sense, we do have requirements legally for certain ratios in our preschool classrooms. So if we have an integrated preschool, we can have 15 students. We actually can have 2 separate ratios. We usually do 15 because it's more cost efficient that way. And with that, 8 students are typically developing students and 7 students are special education students.
Okay.
We are required to have 1 teacher and 1 paraprofessional in those classes. So I would say our tuition costs don't really, like it's kind of a wash with regard to personnel that we
Yeah.
require to have that program run, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
Sorry, one question. Yeah, if our preschool hours more closely mirrored that of kindergarten or first grade, would the transportation cost go down? If let's say they were taking the same bus on the way, like if preschool started at the same time as kindergarten, even if it got out at a different time, you'd have one less run in the morning or one less in the afternoon, depending on your
So
start
all of our
run.
preschool buses have 5-point harnesses because the kids are so small. So they do require that additional piece. So they wouldn't necessarily be able to ride, the big buses. So we do have those smaller buses. The reason we do vary the times is because the preschoolers trying to get off their buses at the same time as the kindergartners and first graders. I mean, I'm sure anyone who has been to North or South Grafton Elementary School during that time, it's a lot, especially with parent pickups and all of that good stuff. So that's a reason we don't actually have them ride together, is because they do require 5-point harnesses, a lot of the students, just based on size and age coming in on those smaller buses.
Any other questions? Nothing? All right. This was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Maybe you can come back
You're not
later in the
going
year and show us the IEP situation.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
That'd be great.
I
Yeah.
forgot.
Really want me here?
Thank you again
Yeah,
for coming in.
Thanks, Nicole.
No, it doesn't matter. It's Kathleen's birthday today.
What?
Happy birthday, Kathleen.
Kathleen.
Brought it up about 1,000 times
Must
today.
be thrilled to
I was
spend it
gonna
with
I
tell
was
us.
just
people,
gonna
and I figured
say.
she'd be mad, so.
Yeah, we would have had
I would have
cake.
baked for her.
Sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
Just excited.
Well, let's let us celebrate Kathleen just for a minute.
She's been talking about it
Oh,
all
wait, she's
day.
leaving?
Happy birthday!
Here's your birthday present. You don't have to stay for the budget.
Go home.
This is not working. I'm ready when you're ready.
Okay,
Sorry.
I
I
don't
just
have
can't-
much as a placeholder. I think we agreed through December at the very least, we'd keep a placeholder for the budget, to talk about any questions, any misconceptions, what have you. I did see after our last meeting where I presented basically my thinking on everything, a title in one of the local papers, the Cummings, what was it, something about, Cummings asks for an $8.6 million override, so I just wanted to address that. And maybe I probably wasn't clear enough.
You were
I will
clear.
say I'll be 100% clear that an override, in my estimation, will be needed to maintain level services. I have zero doubt about that. But the questions that more than myself, certainly, or this committee, it would have to be with other committees, with the select board, decide if an override would even be put on the ballot for consideration. That level of services, we looked at that chart really briefly with stable in the middle, dysfunctional, and like good and great. Like that's got to be discussed and figured out. With that in mind, obviously, how long would it be designed to last? So I did speak to, and probably should have been more clear about it, I spoke to 5-year increments simply because we've done that twice. There are districts that will do a 1 year, 3 year is fairly common. 5, I'm guessing some places done longer than 5. So how long, and then depending on how long it's designed to last and that level of service, that's going to dictate the cost. So the cost, the overall number, but the cost to the taxpayers. I can see where they got the number, they added up these gaps. I do want to remind everyone that the gap in red, that deficit, that is the entire town anticipated forecasted deficit for the town. So I'm assuming it sounds like the schools, but that's just based on me. It's going to be a schools override if there is one, and that's 100% of that deficit. I don't for a second think that no other department is going to increase in terms of needs over the next 5 years. But that's probably a discussion for the future. So if it was 3 years, obviously with that number, which I assume is going to be on the high side, you're looking at, 4 something. You could do 2 years, 1 year, 4 years, and that needs to be figured out. So I just wanted to be really clear about that. And then I built into the future agenda. You'll see when we get to it. Obviously, we did special education. We've got technology, HR, and staffing. We'll probably come back to HR and staffing in particular, at least a few times before it's more, at least a draft budget is somewhat finalized, because that's where the money is. 80% of our costs are staffing. Then curriculum and athletics in early November, and then operations, that second meeting. And then the idea is to have that preliminary FY26 budget basically before you, and one for level service being stable and one for a reduction scenario. And that's all I have, but I can answer any questions you might have, or tonight or from the last time we met. I know I threw a lot at everybody.
Other questions? Anybody? Student representatives, you're welcome to ask questions as well. Okay. Thank you, this was very helpful.
All right.
I'll just reiterate to those watching that, you know, misunderstandings happen, and that's okay, but as long as everybody is engaged and paying attention and not trying to jump to the end of the story, then this is a process that we're all going through together, and the story is not a large number override at this point. So let's not panic and read ahead. Thank you, Jay. I guess we'll move on to the student representatives, unless you want to go since you're
Nope,
sitting
that
there.
would be great.
Let them
I'm gonna
go?
pull
Okay.
up the next thing.
All right, to kick off, we just want to remind everyone about college visits. So we have the privilege of having a lot of colleges coming to Grafton soon to visit. So information about those are posted on Schoology, and then also if you know how to use Naviance and stuff, you can get notifications through there. And then really important senior meetings with counselor to discuss post-graduation plans. If you haven't already, that's a really big priority, or else counselors are gonna have to start calling people, which you don't want, you know. It's pretty easy to make a little appointment. And then registration for the PSAT has closed, as well as SAT, for October 28th. So if you are not registered, that's the day where we have our post-graduation planning day. So you can get a college visit that day, which is great because it's during a school day, so you can see like what the college really looks like without missing your classes. Some people like to go visit a workplace, so just start thinking about those things, just so you don't get there and not have anything fun planned. Do you wanna-
Oktoberfest has been scheduled for October 19th at South Grafton Elementary School, and they're looking for volunteers at Grafton High School, so please notify through Schoology if you're interested in volunteering. The first club meetings were held last week, and the homecoming theme, Spirit Week, and class t-shirts were finalized and announced for the week of October 21st through 26th, with the dance on the 27th. That's all I've updates.
Oh, one more thing. There's a bunch of new clubs this year, so if you are interested in anything new, there's a bunch of updates. I just saw one for a chemistry club and a wrestling club, so be on the lookout for that.
Cool.
Hopefully not together. Can I ask a question about the PSAT, SAT day? Can one of you talk about what underclassmen do on that day?
Yeah, so they have, I think it's like called after graduation, like planning days, so they have talks and they have
Like workshops.
workshops that they can discuss what they're interested in doing and find their passion for what they might want to do after graduation.
Awesome. So all students should report to school that day unless you are going to visit a college.
Yes.
Or
Awesome.
workplace.
Thank you so much.
I have a question.
Yep.
I don't know if you know this. Do we hire a wrestling coach? Who's running the wrestling club?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
There was some confusion.
It's not.
It's not a wrestling team because we have a wrestling team, a co-op with another school.
Right.
Okay.
It's just a
It's
club
like
where they practice their
Watching
moves.
wrestling club, not a wrestling.
Oh.
I'm not really sure.
Like
I'm
Hulk
not.
Hogan?
I'm not sure.
I don't know who Hulk Hogan is, Jay.
But
Oh, yeah,
it's
probably.
not a physical club.
I see. Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool too.
I
That's-
totally
yeah,
did not get
that's
that either. I thought it was like a club sport, but now I get it.
awesome.
Okay.
That's fun.
Well,
This
I'm glad
policy
you
sent
asked.
out a clarification because a lot of people thought that as well.
In the
Not just
comments.
That's amazing.
That's exciting.
Maybe we could get the Rock to come. You smell what the
Well, thank you very much, and as always. Are there any questions for the students before they decide whether or not they're going to leave or stay? Okay. Welcome to stay or leave at any time. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
You guys.
Have a nice night.
Superintendent report.
Took half my report. The school department has a warrant article for the emergency replacement of the building envelope of the North Street Elementary School modulars going before the town meeting. In a couple Mondays, Frank Rothwell and I met with the Finance Committee last week, and they unanimously supported the project. So I feel very good about that going into town meeting. I wanted to share and suggest the thought of putting this on a future agenda. Blackstone Valley Educational Consortium. Every year, we do a promising practices where teaching practices or counseling practices, anything that really stands out as innovative, positive, exciting, et cetera, get recognized. We go over all 13, I think it's 13 districts, go over to BBT and have like a breakfast and a ceremony. It's really, really well done, and they celebrate these educators. This year, representing Grafton, we have Tony Kissel and Christina Marazzo from GMS. They are counselors there. This past year, they created a program to decrease student anxiety. They had, bless you.
Oh, bless you.
Excuse me. Sorry.
They had really phenomenal results. So I wanted to not only touch on that, they're going to be recognized. It's early November, the ceremony, but if the committee's open to it, I would love to have them in to give a 10-minute overview of the work they've done. And you'll hear that this year they've taken that pilot and expanded it, and they're still getting great results. So congratulations to them. And that's all I have.
I have a question to touch on the Blackstone Valley. Years and years ago, they used to do field trips to Blackstone Valley to get kids to learn about it. Is that ever going to come back, or could that come back?
During the school day, I hope not.
Where they, you don't want
We've
that?
done it, and we've done it like an optional thing. When I first started, everybody would go. You'd have a whole bunch of buses, and you'd
Right.
go. And it was, in theory, a couple hours. But if you've ever, well, I know you've done some trips with middle schoolers, it's a day. We have 180 days. It was, I forget when it was, but it wasn't like the last day of school kind of thing. So considering that maybe 20 kids go in a given year, which would be a lot for us, we're bringing a class of 260. I thought it had very little value in terms of, I didn't think the benefit outweighed the costs of doing that. So I made that change, I don't know. It feels like 2 decades ago, but it was probably 8 years ago.
Okay. I know that a lot of parents, well, even from personal experience, the information is not really disseminated to parents very well about Blackstone Valley, about what the options are, what that actually means. You have 7th grade or 8th grade students who are hearing about it from their friend's neighbor who went to Blackstone
Sure.
15 years ago. There's not really information coming out of Grafton Public Schools in regards to BVT that's consistent, that parents want to know without.
So maybe we can put out ways to connect parents with BVT. I mean, we struggle to handle our own school district, never mind
Right, yeah.
creating a pipeline for communication to BVT. But they're very good at it. They're very well staffed. They've got very good communication. I think they'd be open to it. So maybe it's that connection of the parents to
Right, just because
BVT.
it becomes like a rumor mill of like, only kids who are interested in engineering should apply to BVT, or only, it's just, there's not a consistent message being sent home, because it's all from Joey's friend's mom learned.
Okay.
That's why I was thinking when they used to do the field trip 100 years ago. I mean, they used to do a field trip with 3rd graders that would go to BVT. I'm talking really long time ago.
To learn about the school?
They still do in 4th grade, I thought.
No, they don't. There's no BVT field trip.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
Well, I'm,
yeah.
You're asking me?
no, I was, Amy,
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know why we would be
Oh,
trying to push kids out of our
Well,
schools.
Well, I think we're getting a little bit out of
Okay.
scope
I
here.
was
I
in
think
the
it's
bathroom
it's a
also.
good suggestion,
right, it's just a question.
but I think that's something that maybe we can take care of offline.
Yeah, I actually have a school visit tomorrow to GMS, so I'll talk to Chris.
Yeah, cool. I mean, that's probably all it takes is more information coming from, in the newsletter or something
A link
for
to them.
parents.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
certainly have it.
I'd like to move on to the school committee calendar. Chugging right along. The next meeting, we're slated to have some discussions on the handbook. Technology update and budget is still there. I assume we're still on track for that.
Yep.
We'll look at the MASC resolutions and another budget update, which that looks like a real full meeting, so I don't want to really add anything in there. The next meeting, it looks like we have Ashley Paulson coming in for athletics. That's a reschedule. We'll have our teaching and learning update and budget, and then some more budget stuff. We'll also, at the 12th, the meeting of the 12th, we'll do a, in member reports, we'll have members who attend MASC talk about their experiences there. We don't usually put that as an agenda item, and we don't do presentations for it. We just talk about whatever we've gleaned. Does anyone have anything, any comments, questions? I did write down having special education come back again. There's a special education report on Thursday, the 29th of April. So that might be where we get kind of more information on how the new IEP is going. But I made a note to make sure that doesn't get moved. And we can add Jay's suggestion. There's, you know, December 10th is pretty open. There's only one thing there. And we only have one meeting in December, so. Yes,
I might have missed this. Forgotten.
it's okay.
We typically, so we have a mid-year goals review. Did we ever had original goals? I know some of them are 2 years, and
presented
you haven't
those.
presented those.
Oh.
Might want to get that
I think we
Just-
moved it.
to help us. I don't see it, but I could also be missing it because I'm old.
I thought I saw it before.
I see the
I
mid-year.
probably just didn't put it back
He
on.
probably just took it off.
I can do it at the
But
next.
don't
meeting.
you
That's-
worry.
All right,
It's pretty exciting.
Well, it helps us with the
yeah. It helps us with our evaluation,
Yeah.
which I know you're thrilled about.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that would be great. Good catch, Laura, thank you.
goal is to pass an $8.6 million.
Don't say that. That's gonna be a video clip now on the internet. Say
I
that.
don't think so.
You're a meme.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
Hope not.
I have a question. Will the handbooks be ready? Because I thought that the policy subcommittee was gonna be looking over that list of policies that Dr. Cummings presented and maybe tweaking, adding, eliminating, whatnot.
I was going to talk tonight about those 12. So we can make that decision. I don't know if that goes horribly or if you or any other member wants to add. If we need to delay that, that's fine with me.
Let's talk through the policies and see
Yeah.
what we can do.
see where we're at.
Okay.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
Anything else? Okay. All right, so going back, approval of minutes. I'll take a motion when someone's ready. We only have one set of minutes tonight.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
I move the committee approve the minutes from the July 30th, 2024 school committee meeting.
Second.
motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Okay, 4 yeas. I'm going to
Aye.
abstain.
Aye.
What did I say?
No, I just in case
Oh,
you didn't see it.
yes, 4,
Sorry.
and then I'm going to abstain on
Okay.
that one. Okay. Thank you. Financial report.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I would like to submit warrant 13 to the committee for approval in the amount of $281,439.92.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Madam Chair.
Yep.
I move that the committee accept warrant 14 in the amount of $528,158.65.
I second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carries. All right. We will move along now to, let's see.
Some slides.
Sorry.
So, you get to judge how I did on my homework. So following that policy workshop a couple weeks ago, Mandy and I we basically just looked at the employee handbook and the student rights and responsibilities handbook drafts, pulled out all of the policies. We looked at MASC policies, we looked at what we had in the Grafton policies, and we looked at the policy audit that was performed last year. Then we highlighted all the policies that we think that in that process were highlighted to put before the school committee for consideration. And those are the ones, I think there are 12, and they're in your book. So when we looked at student rights and response, actually, I think I have this backwards, I do. With the employee handbook, there were 13 central policies, 2 of which were flagged, and then in the student rights and responsibilities handbook, 34 policies and 11 that were flagged. One of those was in both, so we end up with 12. Just to give you a sense of what we did, we went through, this was the employee one, and it was the gifts and the personal security and safety that were flagged as not being approved, as best we could figure out. So those 2 are on the list. I should have started by saying that the policy subcommittee hasn't met since the workshop, so I took what I perceived to be the marching orders, and the work presented to you tonight is solely mine, certainly shared with the committee, but good, bad, or indifferent, it's mine and Mandy's, mostly mine. And then we have 2 pages for the Student Rights and Responsibilities Handbook. You'll see 5 policies flagged on page 1 and 6 on page 2. In total, these were I think there are 12 policies that we believe that after going through that process should be considered for approval by the committee. At that point, what we have currently in the 2 handbooks, we believe would be covered and up to date. I think that's all I have. Yep.
Policy subcommittee, do you have anything? I know you didn't meet, but,
No, we did not meet.
okay.
But we all communicated via email, and, we saw, as the rest of the committee did, we saw Jay's recommendation. I would ask, this seems like more, like even more policies than I would have expected that were required to have in the handbook. So I assume these have been, these are vetted, we're comfortable. I know, you guys spent a lot of time on this, so.
Yeah, we've definitely spent a lot of time on the handbook. Yeah, we're incredibly comfortable with
Right.
what we have.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I would just add that these aren't the only policies in the handbooks.
just-
These are the policies
Correct.
that we had been identified as ones that the committee had not approved since we moved over the.
Correct. So
right,
if you go
MA.
back,
So this is
all
an
these in
exhaust.
green, all these in
Right.
green on these 3 pages.
Are also in the handbooks.
Correct. Yeah, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear on that.
Okay.
But it
I
was
just
the-
think it's
what
a
was
lot
in
of
the yellow,
policies.
that
There's a lot.
was flagged.
All right. What is the committee's pleasure?
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
So I have an issue with this list. It's definitely not as comprehensive as it should be. There's policies here, there's new policies that are missing from the list. And they're missing because they state in the new policy that they must be included in a handbook. I've read every policy probably 300 times, so I have a very extensive list that I have gone through and read every policy in our manual. And this is not all the policies,
Including the green ones.
including the green ones, yes.
So we don't, you're,
You have, there's more policies that are brand new to the district
Right.
that need to be included in the handbook that are not on this list of 12.
have you considered sharing that list?
I'd be happy to meet with you and go over the list, sure.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But I don't want to step on, like, if this is the work of policy subcommittee, I don't want to do the work, if the,
It's a weird, right, we're in a weird place, right? Because I think the work of the policy subcommittee, and I'm speaking for myself, and Laura, please jump in, is, to work through policy. And I think you're veering into, here's what I think belongs in the handbook, right? Or here's what.
right.
And
Like different topics, you mean?
Yeah, there's different topics, and they say it in the policy, like, this must be included in the handbook. And I've looked up with Mass General Law, and I've talked.
yeah, because I've
So
got.
there's other policies that are brand new that need to be included. And I don't, I mean, we're in a weird situation, so.
Yeah, brand new
Brand new,
to us because
Brand new
they're
to
from,
us, yeah.
they're from MASC and we haven't approved them yet,
right.
but
Yeah.
we've not usually had them in our handbooks before.
Well, we've never, yeah, so,
And when so I also looked at Mass General Law and, to me, there are many fewer, policies that need to be in than we have. I feel like we're pretty
I think
comprehensive.
what's being said is, like, in the body of some
One of the
policy, it
MASC.
says it should be in
well,
a handbook.
beyond that, MGL would require some of these to be in. Okay.
Maybe.
So are they like
I-
student discipline ones?
I
I'm
did
sorry.
reach out to-
I mean, I can send the whole list over to everybody if
That
you'd
would be
like. I don't-
fantastic.
Or meet with you and go over them.
Or we could send it first. I met with, or didn't meet with,
Cle-
I spoke with our attorney about what's required, and I reached out to the gentleman who did the tiered focus monitoring, who works for DESI, and laid out our handbooks with what we have, and he said they both thought we exceeded what we have to have. And then I pulled out, through Mass General Law, what has to be covered. We went through it, I don't know how many times, more than I'd like to admit. For the employee handbook, we've hit all of these, and for the student handbook, we've hit all of these, obviously, and then some. If there's something that we're missing, I'd love to know what it is, and we can put it in there.
So my question, which never got answered, was when you presented them to the lawyers, are you presenting the manual and asking which policies out of this manual need to be placed in a handbook, or are you just showing a handbook with these policies?
And does it meet the criteria? Absolutely. It would cost us a fortune to send, however,
Right.
hundreds of,
I know
I mean,
that
that would be-
question seemed. Okay, that's fine.
So for example,
Question.
Hold on, go ahead.
I mean, and this doesn't have to do even with the policy, but it seems like if there are policies that MASC is telling us need to be in our handbook, there needs to be a place where you can find that information and not have to read every single policy to find it. And so I don't, why would that not exist? That's,
I haven't called
and obviously,
MASC.
none of us, have
Yeah,
that
so-
information.
So, we can work with MASC
Yeah.
to
MASC
identify that tomorrow.
Well, I spoke
Yeah.
with MASC over the weekend because I had my charting the course, and they said they would never put together a handbook type thing because so many districts, different things. So they do make recommendations within policies. So
Okay,
they're never
so
gonna-
I'll have Mandy read all the policies tomorrow.
Well, I mean, at some point, the administration should know the policies anyway within the manual.
Okay, we're getting off track now. Leora, go ahead.
I think I'm good. I don't want to drag it on.
All right. Can we return back to these policies, because
Can we at least, yeah,
we
can we approve
need to
these?
do something about these.
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
I would like to make a motion to approve EEAE, the School Bus Safety Program. I think, and we can do first readings, or we can just do it as presented.
I think at the end of the workshop last time, we did discuss, for the purposes of expediency and the fact that we're not required technically to do second readings on these, that we would just agree to accept in one vote,
Amazing,
okay?
as
So,
presented.
As presented, EEAE.
I second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Excellent.
Madam Chair,
Yep,
I make a motion to accept policy GBEBC, gifts to and solicitations by staff as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
I do have a comment on this one.
Yep.
In the class gifts part,
Mhm.
it says that the recipient, which I'm assuming would be like a teacher, the recipient may not accept an individual gift from someone who contributed to the class gift, and it is the responsibility of the employee to confirm that the individual offering such gift did not contribute to the class gift. That is a weird ask. I'm just gonna say that.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. However, it's,
Yep, I hear you. I just wanted to say
Okay.
that out loud for everyone.
yeah, it is very weird.
Yep.
And I believe, at least, I'm aware of a time when teachers received communication from the district reminding them, under Mass General Law, what their responsibility is.
Right. And I know that that's the law, and I'm
Yeah.
just saying, I think that's weird.
It is very weird.
Yep.
I don't disagree.
I second that. It's weird.
Any further discussion on this policy? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I move the committee approve staff, policy GBGB, staff personal security and safety as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor?
Madam Chair, I move the committee approve policy IHBF, homebound instruction as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. I had a question on this one. Sorry, I'm a little bit flustered because it's out of order somehow.
It is two different
It
orders,
says,
yeah.
page 9, right? It says, we're supposed to put in who the statement needs to go to. It says Director of Pupil Services, that's the boilerplate piece. And I don't know that we have that position. So Jay, what would,
Which page are you on?
page 9,
9.
what would be the appropriate position to put in this policy?
Director of Special Education, that works.
Okay.
Do you want us to bring this one back, Amy?
I don't think that's
Special
necessary.
education thing?
He just said special education.
Special ed.
I know, but
It's
I don't,
under that,
it is?
yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it's not a student who receives any special education services? Okay, great.
I will make the edit.
I think in this case, it's just, it was a
Yeah.
oversight, it's just adding a position. I certainly don't disagree with what the superintendent's recommending. So, yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah,
Anybody have any discussion?
Good.
Okay, good, thank you, Jay. I would not have come up with that for some reason, I would have thought,
It's not by design, it's
It used to be,
by
I
default.
think
it's
it used to
fall
be like
there.
assistant superintendent, like used to be
Yeah,
Tracy
no, it
for
was.
years, yeah.
Director of People Services sounds like a great job, but not a position we have. All right, any further discussion on this policy? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carries.
Madam Chair,
Yep.
I make a motion to accept JB Equal Educational Opportunities as presented.
Second.
Any discussion on this? This is not the one we had before, right?
No.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye, motion carries.
We're doing two. Madam Chair,
Yes,
I would like to make a motion to accept policy JI, Student Rights and Responsibilities, as presented.
Second.
motion made and
Yeah.
seconded. Student rights and responsibilities. Any discussion on this one? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I move the committee accept policy JICB, care of school property by students as presented.
Second.
I have a question. We approved this already in
I thought we
August.
did.
Okay,
It's
great.
here, and I
That's
don't
all
think
right.
it hurts.
Yeah, no,
to do.
yeah, well, it's already in.
Oh, it says August 19th.
That was one I saw and went,
Oh, great.
we
Yeah,
might as
it's
well
already
do it
in.
anyway.
No.
But
We already did it.
It's done.
Great,
You want
Okay.
to withdraw?
yes, I withdraw
Awesome.
the motion.
Look at that.
Fantastic.
I missed that one. I don't even know where we are. I'm looking at like two different lists.
Madam Chair.
Yeah,
I move the committee approve policy JLC, student health services and requirements as presented.
Second.
motion made and seconded.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have some discussion on this one.
Sure.
In this policy, it mentions emergency procedures handbook. Does Grafton have that?
Not one that's published, no.
Okay.
Yeah, we are mandated to have a plan for each school. And that's shared with police and fire for obvious reasons. We don't
It's not publicly.
Share it with the
public
general.
But
with
it
school maps
But we
and all
have,
that.
but there is
But we
one.
definitely
Yes,
have that. We
okay.
have to.
Okay.
And then my other question on this policy is that it references two other policies that we haven't accepted yet.
Oh,
Which
the
are
first aid.
first aid and EBC emergency plans. So I would think, since those aren't up right now for approval, maybe get rid of that cross-reference portion, or
I mean, would we be comfortable
Or leave it.
Or-
and-
or-
doing them
approve them.
as presented?
I'm
I
not
mean,
comfortable because they're not in the packet.
That's fair.
So
I'm
we'll-
looking at them on our site, so we
You
could
can-
look at them, but
You
I
could
fair.
leave them, you can leave the
could-
references.
We could put them in for next meeting.
Yeah.
Let's do
Is
that.
that okay with the policy subcommittee?
Oh, sure.
Throw those two
Yep.
in?
No, we're gonna,
Yep.
we're gonna meet.
So
also.
it would be EBB
EBB
and EBC.
and
I
EBC.
know we have JLCD, because we've definitely looked at that one before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we already did that one. No, no,
Looking
it's-
at that
Yeah,
again.
no, it's just the EBB and
And it's due, I
EBC.
think, again.
Oh,
It
God.
probably is.
Believe it.
They're always due. It's-
Well,
it's
that's
a living,
that one's one of the, every 2 years.
It's
Yeah.
a living document. I thought we got rid of first aid.
Oh, God.
There was a different first aid that we
Right.
deleted.
There
Thank
was an
you.
issue with it.
Thanks,
All right.
Christie. Okay, so I'll just hold from maybe updating, or like, we'll just approve it today, but I won't send it over to to MASC.
We can do that as long as it
Can
doesn't
wait.
get forgotten, yeah. That works for me.
Might get forgotten, but I bet I'll be reminded, so it'll be okay.
Okay.
All right.
It won't get forgotten.
Any further discussion on JLC, student health services and requirements? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
I'm confused on where
Yeah.
we are.
Yeah, this-
Yeah, we're
it's all
definitely.
out of
I was
order.
working
The
on.
first list
All out
is
of order.
different from the list, just whatever. It is what it is. Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I move the committee approve policy JLCA, physical examination of students, as presented.
The second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Yes, yes, Rebecca. Dr. Soko.
Yes,
I would like to state for the record that I would like to get BMI measurements out of our schools.
I don't disagree with you.
That's all I would like to say. I know that that's not our jurisdiction, so,
Second.
but
Yeah.
I just want that to be said. I would like to not approve that part, but I know I cannot.
Yeah, Department of Health regulations.
I think we're gonna see that change in the next few
I
years
think so too.
as the medical community comes around to the fact that it's just not a useful.
It doesn't, it is a
Measurement.
meaningless measurement that causes real harm to our students. And it costs a lot of money to train our staff to do it in a confidential way, so.
Really good
That
point.
is all.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
bringing it up.
Thank you.
very much.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
Did you oppose?
You can
No,
abstain? Do you want to abstain?
I know, I'm like,
It's
I
okay.
approve, it's okay.
All right.
I approve in following the law.
Okay, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I move the committee approve policy JLCB, immunization of students, as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? I was just quickly skimming for something.
It was fun.
All right, no discussion. Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Awesome, aye. Motion carries. We have two more to go.
Yes. Madam
Which two?
Chair,
Yes.
I move the committee accept policy JRD, student photographs, as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And finally, Madam Chair, I
Yes.
move the committee approve policy KDB, public's right to know, as presented.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any discussion on this?
Just again, on this policy as well, where it cross-references to another policy, BEDG minutes. So if we could get,
Bring those next
Add
week.
that to the list.
Great. All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, move to vote. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. All right, so. Back to the agenda. Member reports. I'm gonna go first. I did finally get a chance to meet with Mr. Carney of the high school about Student Advisory Council. He agrees and was enthusiastic about the idea that we try to plan our Student Advisory Council meetings, at least a couple of them, kind of more around the students, student-centric. He proposed a couple of options, which not everybody is going to be able to do them, and I totally understand that. And I don't want anybody to say, well, I can't do that. I know. I just wanted to put out there what was suggested. One of the options was maybe make one of those 4 meetings that we are required to have during the school day, during extended block. Another suggestion was to do one after school and another one after athletics end. He agreed that having them in the physical proximity of the high school would improve our attendance, which is kind of a no-brainer. We talked a lot about being sensitive to students who don't have transportation. After school, they can't leave and come back, or they can't get a ride late because we don't have a late bus. So I want to be as accommodating and inclusive as we can, while also involving the most numbers of members of the committee as possible. That said, there is not a requirement in the statute that all members of the school committee have to attend these meetings. So I would like to send an email out to the committee and just kind of get a sense of availability and try to put some things on the calendar. And then Mr. Carney will take care of publicizing our availability to the students and see what we get. How does that sound, everybody?
Love it.
It is a very confusing statute. We are on notice that we need to do it. I'm hoping we'll get some better ideas later in the year, but for now, we could put 2 or 3 of these on a calendar, and see where we land.
And they give us good, when
Yes.
they're able to participate, we really get good insight, so.
And I like the idea of it not always being the same students.
Yeah.
The one thing that we don't do that's in the statute, that we know that we're not doing, is that it's not elected.
Right.
The statute says you have to, and I don't think any school district is actually doing that, not that I've encountered anyway. It's just, it's a lot of overhead. We already have our student representatives. There's just not a lot of enthusiasm. But being available to the students and letting them speak to us and having us hear them is more important than that, in my opinion. So, they want to haul me off to jail, so be it. I'll go.
We'll visit you. We'll bring a cake.
I'm
with a
hoping
file.
somebody would bail me out, ladies. Come on.
Just bring a cake with a file in it.
cake
It'll be
with a
fine.
Any other member reports? I know yours is going to be really long.
it's not that long.
Well, you have
I
a
have
lot.
gifts.
You have gifts?
Yes.
Well, does anybody else
Wow.
have a member report, just so I
I
have a
just
sense of time? You
Would
have-
like to give a quick plug for the Unified Basketball Team
Oh.
tomorrow. They have their home opener in the gym, 3:15. They had their first game last week in Millbury, and that gym was packed with a lot of kids and students cheering on their classmates. It is super inspiring to see the members of the GHS women's basketball team who are helping out kids from GMS and GHS who are, unified athletes with, kids who receive special education services and kids who don't, playing together. It's, I'm just highly recommend if you have the time to come check out their game.
What time is
It's gonna
it?
be great, 3:15.
And it's in the high school gym? you
It
said?
is at the high school
All
gym.
right, I will try to make it.
It's gonna be awesome, and
Sounds
not
fun.
just because I have an athlete playing, but
Oh, that's nice. You have anything?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have nothing.
All right, go ahead.
I went to my MASC charting the course, and they gave us thumb drives
Oh
for
my
everybody
God.
here. Here you go. One for you.
You know why they're
one
giving
for
them
you.
away, right?
Dr. Cummings.
Oh,
Do
great.
people still?
Yes, that's, there it is. There it is.
Yes,
they just
it was
need to
that
get
or
rid of
CD-ROMs, Mandy. And so, no, I'm kidding. So I had that all day on Saturday out in North Adams. I don't know if you've ever been to North Adams. It's quite a trek, 2.5 hours away. So that was fun. And what else? So that was a good time. I just wanted to clear something up. I did receive an email from somebody in the town questioning whether I was blocking people on my Facebook account. Just to clear that up for everybody, I have never, nor would I block anyone on my official school district Facebook account. And if anybody is having trouble viewing the thrilling information that I post on there, please feel free to reach out to me on my school email, which you can get on the school website. So that's all I have.
That's it.
Are these voted with our policies?
They no. They
Is there
are,
a spreadsheet on here?
They are preloaded with policies, and we'll see how that goes.
Anybody have anything else under member reports? We have no correspondence. We do not need executive session that I'm aware. And so, as there's no other business that can legally come before the committee at this time, I declare the meeting adjourned. Good night, Grafton.
Good night.